Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now December 27th of 2023, and as we get closer to the new year, we know that Disney is doubling down on their usage of DEI and ESG into many of their projects, be it animated or live action material, doesn't matter. Bob Iger has no boundaries at this point in time, where he doesn't really care about any kind of ramifications or consequences he gets himself into, seemingly. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Deadpool 3, and I've mentioned this many times, is that Disney is pouring all of their hopes into this movie of really making a significant profit for the Marvel Cinematic Universe over at Marvel Studios by Kevin Feige. They're really placing all bets on this thing. And given that this is really the only major live-action project by Disney for 2024, since they delayed so many live-action projects until the following year after, we know that there's a lot of things going on right now between Ryan Reynolds and writers Rhett, Reese, and Paul Wernick going up against the Disney heads, and how this also involves actress BRIE LARSON as Captain Marvel. Let's get into all of this, shall we? Now, specifically, we know that Deadpool 3, as you know, is going to include many cameos, alright? Many unexpected ones, as well as expected cameos on the lower end there. Hugh Jackman, of course, being the main character in this film alongside Deadpool, and the fact that we have Wolverine back in action is really the main selling point of this movie, I feel. That's really what Disney's going for, and it's really a 50-50 at this point. Now, with the Deadpool 3 drama only getting more complicated as time goes on between the writers and the Disney heads, one major development has to do with Ryan Reynolds and his decision to make a significant change, as it turns out, for the film in the third act that eventually involved BRIE LARSON as Captain Marvel. With many cameos set to make both minor and major appearances in all acts of the film, one update has to do with one aspect that was just finalized by Disney after Ryan was pushing to remove BRIE LARSON as Captain Marvel entirely from the latest The Marvels box office disaster. Now, surprisingly, it was Reynolds' call months ago to delete BRIE LARSON entirely from the Deadpool 3 story as a cameo, and the main reason behind Ryan's need to remove Larson had to do with forced dialogue that didn't fit the film naturally, that was pressed to be used by the heads over at Disney as they wanted to use Captain Marvel as a source to promote elements of the multiverse and Fantastic Four in the third act of Deadpool 3. It wasn't until the Marvels failed at the box office that Disney recently decided to follow up with Ryan's requests that he has actually been, of course, long in the making to remove Larson from last-minute filming that was to be done in January. With Larson's role now completely written out of the script, another major cameo is reportedly taking Brie's place that will cater to the Marvel fans in a more positive light that has not been done before yet. Another shocking surprise coming out of this development is that Brie's cameo was considered to be a glorified cameo at that, with a total runtime of around 10 whole minutes, where she was going to have an integral role in the third act of the movie. However, Ryan wanted her out of the film beyond her subpar acting and the dialogue that was forced by Disney. It also had to do with the new fact that Captain Marvel was going to be used to promote Disney's Fantastic Four for 2025, where she was set to introduce the characters like Mr. Fantastic, Invisible Woman, The Thing, and the Human Torch. All characters are going to be teased through Captain Marvel's character. Somehow, through the specifics are not currently known. Actually, of course, how the scene was going to be fully executed. Brie was reportedly furious over Ryan's decision to remove her from the script that took many months of convincing Disney to finally make that ultimate call. Now guys, let me just stop here quick before I get to the big conclusion about what was going on here with the whole Captain Marvel situation. Now, we talked about this about 3 months ago, where it first started to erupt that Ryan Reynolds, Paul Wernick, and Rhett Reese were having a lot of differences on the usage of cameos and Disney's overall direction on really kind of throwing in nearly almost every cameo that you could think of in that movie in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's a very minor role or a more significant role, doesn't matter. They wanted to get a lot of significant characters in there for a way or a strategy to improve ticket sales. You know, this is really the main drive of this movie. It's not just the fact that it's a Deadpool film, but Disney's trying to sell this film as like a cameo fest, along with the return of Wolverine after Logan upset a lot of fans. You know, we know that a lot of people had differing opinions on that film, by the way. They felt that Wolverine didn't have the proper send-off. And so, if they don't really deliver with this film, you can only imagine what people would think, specifically those that did not like Logan. So what's interesting about this further has a lot to do with Ryan's take on BRIE LARSON. So it wasn't just limited to him having a lot of problems with her acting and her overall track record in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with her subpar acting, but it was the dialogue, the way it was being presented, the way that the Disney heads wanted it to be pretty much executed in the third act, in the final frames of this movie, to really kind of set things up for Fantastic Four 2025. And we also talked about this too, that Ryan was not up for Deadpool 3 turning into like an advertisement for future Phase 6 and Phase 7 movies for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, stuff like that. He wasn't really all for that, and still isn't to this day, and it's still the same concept that Disney is actually pushing for. Now, beyond that, Ryan also wanted to dial down the number of MCU cameos, and wanted to cater to more unexpected appearances from the SSU and other areas in Marvel Comics generally speaking, of course. Now, Ryan, along with writers Rhett, Reese, and Paul Wernick, as it turns out, always had creative differences between each other over the insertion of Captain Marvel in Deadpool 3 that was not by choice. Ryan didn't write any of the scenes, however both Rhett and Paul did write the cameo, and were given instructions by those high up at Disney on how the dialogue would flow and would be established from the character to promote Fantastic Four. So again, we know that the multiverse is going to be used somehow, some way in Deadpool 3. The exact specifics aren't quite known at this point, other than the fact that it will be a strong element around the second act, leading into the third. That's where you're going to see most of the cameos popping in and out of this movie. And, you know, at the same exact time, the fact that it took the Marvel's box office disaster for Disney to finally follow up with Ryan and say, you know what, it's a good idea, let's get rid of Larson, let's get rid of that cameo, let's replace, you know, that character with someone else. And that was one good call. I'm not defending Disney by any means, but that was only one good call that those like Iger and high up at Disney made for Deadpool 3. Besides that, it's really all a lot of toying with the writers of this movie. You know, Disney's trying to see what they can get away with, and that really is creating a lot of problems for the production of the third film, that Ryan really wants to wrap up, by the way, to perfect it as a very good trilogy. You know, Deadpool 1, amazing movie in my book. Deadpool 2 was a disappointment. That's how I see things, at least. Deadpool 3, if they can't outperform the second, then you know you're in trouble. That's how I really kind of view the whole scenario, right? So overall, guys, you know, drop a comment below, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.